Mother, man.
Hey guys, I'm Antonio Araujo from Korzus, and you're listening to Murder Metal Mayhem.
Spreading faster than a case of the clap in a trailer court. Able to shatter eardrums within a 666-mile radius. A podcast more brutal than all the rest. It's Murder Metal Mayhem! We have the pleasure of doing this interview with Antonio Araujo of the Brazilian thrash masters Korzus. He's one of their shredding guitar players. I am Pete Altieri, and I have one of my co-hosts here for Murder Metal Mayhem, Chris C.K. Kovacs, known as the Great Metal Motherfucker. Thanks for taking the time out to talk with us today. And how is everything going on in Brazil? And did I get the pronunciation correct?
Yeah, you got it. You got it at least 70% correct.
All right, I'll take it.
All right. Hey, Pete. Hey, CK. It's a pleasure to be talking to you guys and Murder Metal Mayhem. And, well, it's the first time we're talking. So, well, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
Antonio, this is CK. Pete and I just recently discovered you guys and we're amazed that Korzus has been around since 1983. When did you join the band?
Oh, yeah, I joined the band in 2008. It's been 13 years now. Actually, I am 2 years younger than the band itself. I was actually, no, I'm lying. 1 year younger. I was born in 84 and the band began in 83. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a funny thing because, you know, Korzus is a band that, of course, we are aware that it isn't a big name outside of Brazil. It's a very underground name, and maybe some people portray Korzus as a cult band from Brazil for its old, you know.
Right.
But Korzus never had a career, an actual career outside of Brazil because back in the day, in the beginning in the 90s, Europe, after the release of one of the classic albums that is called Mass Illusion, they did some touring, and they also did some touring in the US in the 90s, but there was no continuity because the band had problems with formation. You know, musicians left the band and all that, and they had to rebuild. And, well, it is what it is. And Korzus is basically a very well-known band in Brazil and some other countries in South America as well. But still in Europe and in US, we are still an underground band. That's why we don't tour that much, not as much as we would like to, because touring is, you know, high cost. And for us, being a bunch of old guys, it doesn't make sense to travel and pay for everything, you know?
Right. Makes sense.
To tour, not make any money.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Really doesn't. Most of us are parents, so, you know.
Right. Makes it harder to just get up and leave. Now, what does the band, does Korzus have a meaning? I wondered if that was a word or where did that come from? What does that mean?
It's a funny story, dude. Actually, from well, that's what the guys tell me about it because I wasn't there in the beginning. Actually, I wasn't even born. but they tell me that back in the beginning of the 80s here in Brazil, there were not that much headbangers. You know, it was like small tribes. You know,
right?
And some friends would just join together and start sharing whatever they had access to. Of course, there was no internet, nothing like that. So it was hard to get a hold of good material and new stuff about bands, you know. Maybe, of course, in the US and in Europe, it was completely different. But here in Brazil, things would get here at least 1 year after they were released, you know. So there was a big delay this information to get here and to the Brazilian headbangers to have access to new Iron Maiden release or new Slayer release or whatever. So this was how it was, and some friend that had money enough to go travel Europe and buy the records and would come back and just start recording a bunch of cassettes to to his friends, and the thing would spread like this,
Right.
So about the name, back in the day here in Brazil, I know that in the underground scene, it was a very common thing for people to have nicknames, So if you take, for instance, Max Cavalera from Sepultura, the original vocalist,
right?
He used to call himself Max Possessed,
Okay.
Because,
I remember reading about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because this was common here in Brazil, So he was Max Possessed, and everybody had some kind of nickname, probably related to a band or whatever, or even a fucking strange name that someone would come up with,
right.
And so in that case, Korzus fits right there, because there was this guy that was friends with the guys. His name was Marcus, and his nickname was Korzus. And he would call himself Marcus Korzus, with a K. The first show actually that Korzus did, the band was called Hand of Doom. This was back in '83. It was a small gig in their school. They were playing in a school festival.
Right.
So they were called Hand of Doom because of the Black Sabbath song and all that.
Yeah.
And so they were discussing like, hey, dude, I don't know, Hand of Doom, this name is kind of lame, we need something better. And so someone saw in the wall of the dressing room that this dude had painted on the wall Marcus Korzus. And someone looked at it and said, well, Marcus fucking sucks, but Korzus sounds kind of cool.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Said, yeah, well, it does. So it
That's
became
great.
the name of the band.
That's one of the
that's
coolest
cool.
stories I've ever heard. That's great.
Yeah, so pretty much it's a made up name. It means fucking nothing.
That's awesome. Well,
But
the Marcus though, he must think that he's pretty cool. Now he's got the band's name.
Yeah, 38 years after that, and I met Marcus actually.
Oh,
I met
no
him
way!
like
That's
2 years
cool.
ago. Yeah, and the guys were like, "Hey, this is Marcus Korzus," and I was like, "Fuck, nice to meet you." Dude.
Right?
So,
That's pretty
so
awesome, man.
Yeah, so that's that's the story behind it. And if you want to elaborate a little bit more, he said the guys that he took the name from some character that he saw in a horror movie, but he never said the name of the fucking horror movie, so probably he made it up.
Right,
So
right. That's funny.
Yeah.
You guys released a single recently. Can you tell us a little bit about that song? And is there going to be a full album coming out soon? Hopefully soon. We hope.
Yeah, bro. We actually, it's been like Korzus has a characteristic about releasing records. If you look at the story of the band, you're going to see that there's always a big space between every record we do. First, because the band has had problems with musicians in the past leaving the band and all that, so they needed time to reformulate.
Right.
But nowadays,
labels.
Yes, everything. But nowadays, it's truly a matter of maybe that we are old, and we're picky with everything, So it's like we just don't settle for anything less than what we think is something good enough to carry the name Korzus,
Okay.
So that's why it takes some time for us to make a new record. And right now, the last one that we released was Legion back in 2014. And we were pretty much 7 years without releasing anything. And in this pandemic, insane fucking year, we started writing together. And our other guitarist, his name is Eros Trench. He came up with this song and he showed us, and everybody loved it at first. And there was a whole concept behind it. And well, we everybody bought the idea, and we decided to do a single. So right now, what we are thinking of doing is not actually recording a full album again. We are thinking of following the footsteps of many pop music artists nowadays, and spend some time releasing singles and see where it goes from there.
Okay.
You know, so we have released this first one. We are currently working on a second single, and we intend to make it all in the same format with a musical video, high quality stuff, as you can see on this first one.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe try this new way of working and see what happens.
Okay, that's cool. Now, one thing that's interesting about you guys is that some of your songs are in Portuguese. Of course, you're from Brazil, but most of your stuff's in English. How does this go over with your fans, especially since you seem to be, you know, wildly popular in Brazil, but not as much outside?
That's kind of funny, actually, man. Because if you look at the history of Brazilian metal, if you really know the Brazilian metal bands, you're going to see that, like in the very beginning, in the beginning of the 80s and that, the bands would normally sing in Portuguese. That was a more commonly thing.
Right.
But it was like, because I'd say that the main reason for that is that no one was able to speak English.
Right.
You know? So it was like, you know, well, instead of singing in gibberish, I'm going to fucking sing in my language, you know. But with the passing of the time, some bands started to get a little bit bigger and do more professional records. And there was this desire to, how can I say, go out of Brazil, get bigger, you know.
Right.
So, of course, heavy metal being such a worldwide thing, it makes sense for you to sing in English, of course.
Right.
As not only in Brazil, but there are metal bands from all the fucking world that sing in English. I believe it even more than in their own home language, you know.
Right.
Like,
So
I used to remember hearing Japanese bands would sing in Japanese at first, so it's kind of the same that Brazilian doing.
Yeah, that did happen here in the beginning of the 80s, and of course it started to change, and bands like Sepultura and bands like Angra started to get big outside of Brazil. Sepultura especially, it really got really big.
Right.
So maybe if Sepultura never disbanded like that, they would be nowadays a huge fucking band.
Probably.
You know?
Probably.
Yeah, they were on that path. You know.
Yeah.
So of course, if you look at that, you know, macro vision of the market and everything, it does make sense to make your music in English. It doesn't matter where you're from.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's why.
That's cool.
Much.
Cool. Are you guys able to do shows yet in Brazil, or are all things still shut down from COVID?
No, brother. Unfortunately, it's been more than 1 year since we haven't seen a stage up close. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're living in a dystopic situation. You know, I can't express this. You know, it's really fucking insane what's happening here. But anyway, there's nothing we can do right now but to cope with this shit and expect for the best, you know. So what happens now is that vaccination is starting to spread a little bit more. There's more people vaccinated every day. Federal government kind of fucked up in the beginning because they didn't make the deals in the proper timing, so the vaccines kind of took too long to arrive.
Mm.
But once they started to arrive, we have a public health system that does have efficiency to spread it into apply the vaccines. So it is starting to, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a
Right.
pretty fucking long tunnel so
Yeah.
far. So we have no perspective to play again before the next year, to be
Wow.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what are some bands that you're listening to that maybe some of our listeners might not have heard of? We've asked this question with a lot of bands, and we've discovered some really good stuff. So I'd love to hear maybe some bands you might know that we don't.
You mean from Brazil or elsewhere?
Anywhere, just bands that you
General,
dig that
anywhere.
maybe are more underground.
Yeah, well, I'm going to pull it to our side, so I'm going to talk about Brazilian bands. Maybe
Sure.
that makes more sense. Because
Sure.
I'm from Brazil, and
Right.
well, in Brazil we have so many cool bands, dude. It's like it's a whole different world, and there are, of course, there is Crisium, that it's a classic
Oh, yeah.
death metal band from Brazil. You probably know it.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, they are dear friends of ours, and they are one of the hardest working bands I've ever seen. And there is an interesting band. If you want to check it out, it's called Project 46.
Hmm.
It's pretty cool. They got really big in Brazil in the past years, and they sing mostly in Portuguese,
Okay.
which is very interesting. It's kind of a metalcore-ish band, but they have a strong thrash metal vibe to them as well. And they're amazing musicians, and the result is pretty fucking impressive. If you go on YouTube and you look for Project 46,
Yeah, I
you're
just
gonna
pulled
see
it up
videos
on my
for-
phone. They got quite a bit of stuff out there, it looks like. So
Yeah,
some
very
singles.
professional. They have videos with more than 1 million views and everything. They're
Oh,
big
wow.
here in Brazil.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's a cool band, really cool. And if I'm gonna talk about another band that this is really something different for you guys that want to listen to something that you probably never heard before, nothing similar. There is a band from my city. I live in the northeast of Brazil. It's a city called Recife. It's a beach tropical city, so it's hot all year, and all that stuff. Girls
Right.
with bikinis and all that. So
Sounds rough.
Snow never. There's no fucking snow here ever.
That'd be awesome.
Actually, there's never cold, never. And I kind of miss cold actually because I love cold. But whatever.
Right.
This band, and I'm gonna have to tell you how to write this because you pronounce it cangaço.
Okay.
Okay, and cangaço is how can I say this? It was a famous group of vigilantes that existed here in my region, like a couple hundred years ago, and they got famous because there was this guy that he went into a fight with some police dude, and the police dude apparently killed his father or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And then this guy became a fucking vigilante and started joining like the most badass motherfuckers he could find, and they became kind of a gang.
Okay.
That they would cangaceiros. So they started living off of killing policemen.
Oh, my God.
And that was back in it's like 150 years ago.
Okay.
And they got really famous, and this was like this is like a very famous urban legend from our region. So these guys made a band and named after this gang.
Okay.
It wasn't a gang. It was more like a social revolt movement.
Okay.
I don't know.
I pulled it up on my
Anyway,
phone. I see some stuff on there too. CANGACO.
Yeah, but the last C has a
Yeah,
little
it's got a little
lead
squiggly
below
at
it.
the bottom.
Yeah, that's because if it didn't have, in Portuguese we would say co, not so.
Ah, okay.
Has that thing we pronounce it as if it was an S.
Okay.
You know? Yeah,
Interesting.
but anyways, that band is really different, and they mixture death metal with northeastern Brazilian music. So, well,
Interesting.
if you want to check it out,
Yeah.
that is truly interesting and truly unique. So I think it's a good band for
Awesome.
me to show you.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's it. So there are so many others, dude. But well,
Well, we got a
I'm gonna
couple we
restrict
can
it.
dig into.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, do you listen to podcasts much? If so, which ones? And of course, you're a fan of Myrtle Metal Mayhem now, so I know you listen to us all the time.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Well, to be very honest, dude, I do not listen to podcasts that much. My life is kind of ultra busy because I'm not only a musician, I own a company that works with foreign trade. So, truly, between taking care of my kid and bodybuilding and my company and music, there
Pretty
isn't much
busy.
time left for anything else.
Oh, probably not
Yeah,
sleep either.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
understandable.
yeah. But I do listen once in a while to some, and you guys are gonna be in that list from now
Awesome.
on.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
So what's coming up next for Korzus? I know you said that you're, working on another single. Is there any timetable of when that might be ready?
Yeah, well, not a specific timetable right now, but we are currently working on the next single. We do have a couple ideas that we are deciding amongst to see what's going to be the next one, and of course, there's a lot of thinking involved because.
Yeah.
Well, it's a crazy moment, and for us, it is important, as I told you guys before, that if we are going to release something, it needs to be, at least in our opinion, really fucking good.
Right.
So we're not going to settle for less, So at least we have to believe in that,
Right.
So
Right.
we are currently with some promising ideas, and it's well. The idea is to make it and release it as fast as possible, but I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 months, and they're gonna have something new out there.
Cool.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Awesome.
Now, I'm a big proponent of people buying physical merchandise for the bands, especially CDs and any way to support the band. Now, what's the best way for listeners to help support the band, and where can they buy some merch?
Well, we do have an official store here in Brazil. It's called loja.korzus.com.br. Loja, it spells Loja.
Okay.
Loja.
I'll link to that in the episode description. So anybody listening to this, I'll link to that so you guys can just click and buy some stuff. I know I bought your DVD. I think it's going to be here tomorrow. I'm really anxious to watch that, but I don't know if it's in English, though. It's a history of the band, and I know there's a bunch of live stuff on there, so I figured if anything, I've got that, but I didn't know if the whole thing is in Portuguese or English or what.
Pretty much most of it is in Portuguese. I don't know if it's subtitled, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm going to check it out and let you know.
Lessons.
Yeah, you can always look.
Well, I know that C with the little squiggly line is an S, so I got that. Anything you want to add, Antonio? We covered a lot of stuff, but is there anything you want to, that we didn't cover that you wanted to mention?
Well, as right now with this new single, well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the video.
Yeah.
The video is really interesting. If you didn't watch it yet, I recommend that you watch. It's produced and directed by this guy, our dear friend Leonardo Liberti, here from São Paulo. He is an amazing video producer, and he already worked with bands like Megadeth, Europe, and so he is a very well known and very accomplished film director, and he is really so talented, and he is a big Korzus fan as well, so he really helped us out with this, and the script behind the whole video is very interesting because it's a really fast song that it may not seem like that, but it's a song that talks about love. It's a song that talks about not that platonic love. I mean the real love. That carries others. But it's a song that is really violent, and the lyric is really violent, and the video is really violent, because we are talking about cycles of violence and the law of chaos, and how a small action, a small negative action, can cause a whole sequence of everything going to shit. So in the video, you can see that that guy comes into the cafe bar and he asks for a coffee, and he is like rude to the waitress, and she spits on his coffee and gives it back to him, and he gets out pissed off, and he argues with this dude, and the dude goes back home to pick up a gun and kill him, and his wife doesn't let him, and he fucking beats his wife. And his kid sees the gun on the floor and takes it with him, and suffers bullying and fucking killed the dude that bullied him, and then kills himself.
Wow, yeah.
So,
brutal.
Yes. Yeah, so all this, it's a sequence of shit happening.
Right. Yeah.
And just because of one bad action, so in the end, it all comes back to the beginning, and this girl just thinks it over, and instead of spitting in his coffee, she just writes on the napkin like, "Hey, have a nice day, dude."
Right.
And gives. So that would have
stopped all that.
Yeah. So it is a song and a video that talks about that. It talks about the law of chaos, and all the bad shit that you do eventually returns to you, tenfold.
Right.
Well, that's the message behind it.
That's really cool.
Thanks, Antonio, for doing this interview with us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate it here at Myrtle Metal Mayhem. Please definitely keep in touch, and horns high from us here in the U.S.
Yeah, we'll do, bro. We'll do.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you,
we're going
CK.
to play that new single right now, You Can't Stop Me. We're going to throw down so you guys can hear how amazing Korzus is. And like I said, check that episode description and buy some merch and help support the Real Metal Underground. So thanks again, Antonio.
All right. Thank you, guys. If you or anyone else uses Instagram, you can find us there, Korzus_official. And my personal Instagram is Antonio KZS.
Okay, I'll link to all that stuff too.
All right, brother.
All right, take care, Antonio. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. You guys take care. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Mother. Man.